All right, Doug, thank you so much for that detailed report. And again, taking you back out to the White House, as I did mention, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his team arriving in the U.S. bright and early this morning for that high stakes meeting with President Donald Trump. We want to check in now with Jerusalem Bureau Chief for the Jewish News Syndicate channel, Alex Traiman, who is traveling alongside Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu yet again for another visit. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, Alex. Good morning.
Morning, Janae.
So, a lot of the viewers wanting to know what makes this trip different. Also, we want to thank you for joining us bright and early as you have been traveling overnight to get here to the U.S.
It's my pleasure. I think that this is the third trip since President Trump's been in office. It's a little bit more than symbolic. First, it's a victory lap for the successful operation in Iran. Both the president and the prime minister worked together seemingly flawlessly to take out Iran's nuclear facilities. But as the previous report just mentioned, there are other issues on the agenda, including trying to find a solution, an end out of the conflict with Gaza. At the same time, we see that Israel is very active militarily, even in the last 24 hours, attacking in Yemen, attacking in Lebanon, attacking in Syria. So this war is nowhere near over. And then looming on the other side of war is peace. The prime minister and the president expected to speak about normalization agreements, potentially with Syria, potentially with Lebanon, potentially with Saudi Arabia.
And Alex, that's the perfect segue, as you did mention, what the Israeli Prime Minister and U.S. President are expected to discuss, providing this for you and the viewers. I'm sure you already knew this, though, if you traveling along with the Israeli Prime Minister. We just received Netanyahu's tentative schedule in Washington. This coming from a source familiar with the details. It says today a meeting with Secretary of State Rubio and the White House envoy Witkoff at the Blair House for preparation ahead of the meeting with President Donald Trump. This further shows what you just mentioned. All of the dignitaries that are going to be involved with these high-level talks. What is the mood like in Israel, with Israelis knowing that the prime minister is here in the U.S. with still so many hostages in Hamas captivity?
Well, certainly Israelis want to see the hostages home. They know that Hamas is dragging this out. Israel would be ready, I believe, to stop all hostilities in the Gaza Strip and get to that day after, if and only if it can get all of its hostages back. They're talking now, there's a negotiating team in Qatar discussing a 60-day ceasefire, which would see 10 living hostages return and 18 bodies of dead bodies that have been taken hostage return over that period. And then also that the talks would continue toward a permanent end of the hostilities. But at this point, Hamas had given back its demands, and they were reported to be unacceptable to Israel. So we have to see if there's a formula that can be agreeable to both sides.
Alex, as we further discuss this story, you pinpoint an important topic. Hamas is a terroristic organization, so obviously they are wanting their demands to be met. It seems like every time Israel and even the U.S. presents something to make them happy in any sense, they do send it back. Do you expect this to be the final time that something is sent to Hamas? If they do send it back, have you heard if the U.S. will step up efforts? Again, mentioning that hostages are still in Hamas captivity. Also, a lot of eyes on Iran at the same time, as we do know Hamas is backed by Iranian proxies.
Well, we saw the president in his first visit to the Middle East visit Qatar, and it's being reported that the United States is putting tremendous pressure on Qatar, which has been a mediator in this process, which has housed top Hamas leaders to pressure Hamas to finally let go of the hostages. It was reported in the last 24 hours that Hamas's hold on the Gaza Strip has been reduced by 80%. Their military capabilities have been significantly degraded. The top and mid levels of command, have been removed. So Israel feels like there's a military victory there, but at the same time, the only card that Hamas holds is these hostages, and that's why they took them on the first day of this war.
As you mentioned that, Alex, transitioning to give you and the viewers a live look at the Israel-Gaza border, I actually worked this weekend, and it looks like there was a lot of activity out in Gaza. No word if there were strikes, but we do know the IDF did tell people to seek shelter. With that happening, it further seems like the likelihood of a ceasefire isn't happening. We've heard from Netanyahu several times where he says Hamas has no plan for a ceasefire because they want control of this area.
That's right. And Israel and the United States may have some ability to put pressure on Hamas by putting command of the area to another party. We saw that Israel had armed the Abu Shabaab clan, which was an enemy of Hamas inside the Gaza Strip, giving them sort of control over parts of Gaza and what I believe was a pilot project. There might be a larger announcement, whether that would be Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, the Saudis, other parties that will take over control of the Strip. Meanwhile, it's important for Israel that the humanitarian aid, which is the only commodity entering Gaza right now, doesn't get in the hands of Hamas, because then that's what they use in order to maintain their hold over the population.
And Alex, I know you don't have a crystal ball, you can't see the future, but let's say the ceasefire does happen. What happens to Hamas? Do they just find another area to terrorize, more people to murder and kill? What happens? Because we have seen when one group dies down, another might ramp up. We saw that with Hezbollah towards the beginning of October 7th, correct?
Well, it's definitely the big fear that if one group dies down inside Gaza, that another armed faction could arise. It's a very dangerous game. The Israelis had talked about a permanent end to hostilities that would see to all the hostages coming back, and the possibility for exile of remaining Hamas leaders, that they would have safe exit out of the Strip. If not, you will see fighting continue, unfortunately, and it could take weeks, it could take months for Israel to continue to go through the Strip, area by area, building by building, and to extricate the last Hamas gunman.
Alex Traiman, always a pleasure to have you join us here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much for your candidness, your perspective, and expertise as we are looking ahead to the White House on this Monday for those discussions with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and, of course, the U.S. President Donald Trump. We'll be checking back in with you throughout the week to get more updates. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And again, I want to take you